Hello everybody and welcome back to Bring Your Own Popcorn, and welcome back to another ranking video. If you've been keeping up with the channel, you'll notice a couple of weeks ago actually maybe a couple of months ago now that I think about it, I done a ranking of the entirety of Phase 1 of the MCU. And we are going to continue on with that series, and we are going to rank all 6 films in Phase 2 of the MCU. I have similar thoughts with Phase 2 that I do with Phase 1, and that is that there are highs and lows. It is kind of a mixed bag. But on the whole, I would say I prefer Phase 2 very, very slightly. However, let's waste no time and crack on with the ranking with my least favourite film in Phase 2 of the MCU, and that film is, no surprise here, Thor: The Dark World. Yeah, like many people, I am not a massive fan of Thor: The Dark World. I think the film is a bit of a mess, and as a continuation to the original Thor movie, it does literally nothing for anybody's character and just feels like a complete filler film. Some of the action can be quite fun, but the action is surprisingly sporadic. It doesn't happen a lot, and most of the film is just boring, poorly written dialogue. However, I would be lying if I said that this film wasn't without its good moments. There are some really good moments throughout this movie, especially the final third of the film, the whole climax. I actually think that's pretty fun, and whilst it can be a bit overwhelming to the senses with them jumping through different universes, I think it's actually handled pretty well and is a lot of fun. And there are some beautiful moments between Thor, Loki, and their mother in this film, and those moments are honestly the highlight for me. But as I said, most of the story, it just doesn't matter. It is complete filler crap. In terms of performances, no one's giving a bad performance, but it just comes across that a lot of the actors would rather be somewhere else. They seem a bit bored with making this movie, and I honestly can't blame them because of the script that they were presented. And in terms of direction, whilst I don't think that this film is nearly as good as Kenneth Branagh's direction of the first movie, I still think it is fairly competently directed. There are some bad and rocky CGI moments, but on the whole, the direction isn't too bad. However, overall, if I could sum up Thor: The Dark World in one word, it would be nothing. This movie is nothing. Nothing really happens, and whilst some of the stuff we do get is fairly well handled, it is just a pretty boring filler movie. It's not absolutely terrible that some people would make it out to be, but it isn't a great film by any means. I would give Thor: The Dark World a 5 out of 10. Coming in next, we have Iron Man 3. Yes, I don't know if this is quite an unpopular opinion, but this is my least favourite of the Iron Man films. Again, a lot of what is presented to us I just don't find interesting. I do think it is a fairly boring filler movie. While showing Iron Man suffer from PTSD and anxiety is an interesting idea, I don't think it was handled terribly well. In fact, Tony Stark just comes across as egocentric and arrogant throughout the entire film, and not in his normal, likeable and charming way, in a kind of horrible and nasty way, which is just doesn't suit his character at all. I think this film has a bad villain and a pretty bad villain's plot as well, which doesn't help. In terms of highlights of the story, I do think the best stuff is when Tony Stark's interacting with the kid that he meets. I do think they have a really, really good relationship throughout the movie. And I know a lot of people have defended the Mandarin twist, but I really didn't like it. It is genuinely just a massive build-up to absolute nothing. In terms of acting, however, this one gets my thumbs up. Everyone is giving a good performance, and whilst this is probably my least favourite performance that Robert Downey Jr. has ever gave for Iron Man, I still think he is very good here. I think he was just presented with a script that didn't suit his character. And all the supporting cast are doing a good job. I don't really like the villain, as I said. I think he is pretty bad, but I don't think that is necessarily the actor's fault. I just think he's a poorly written villain. The actor actually does a fairly decent job at what he's given. But yeah, I do think the performances are pretty good here. In terms of direction, there are highs and lows for me. I think the direction, in terms of cinematography and stuff and colouring, I do think the direction looks pretty nice, but there are some real low points. A lot of the action is poorly directed, and I know this is a superhero franchise, but painfully unrealistic. Like, the whole scene involving the plane crash in this movie is so incredibly unrealistic, it's unreal. Overall, I'm going to give Iron Man 3 a 6 out of 10. Coming in at 4th place, we have Ant-Man. Ant-Man is just harmless fun, isn't it? Like, I don't really see how anyone could avidly hate this movie. It is honestly just complete, harmless, blockbuster fun. And whilst the movie doesn't necessarily do anything, like, fantastic, it doesn't do anything bad. I think the story is pretty interesting. I love Paul Rudd's character. I love how he's this criminal, kind of turned superhero. I love the world that he kind of gets thrown into with Hope and Michael Douglas's character, whose name's escaping me at the minute. But I love that he gets thrown into their world, and yeah, it's a really nice story, actually. And in terms of villains in these kind of throwaway MCU movies, the villain in this one is actually not bad. He's actually pretty good. And yeah, as I said, it is just dumb fun. There's a lot of action, and there's a lot of really funny moments. It's got quite a laugh out loud script. Yeah, I think the script for what it is, I think the script's pretty good. In terms of the direction, however, I think the direction is just fantastic. I love when these comic book movies have a real unique feel to them, and this one has an extremely unique feel to them. Whenever Paul Rudd or any of the other characters actually shrink and become an ant's size, I love the effects that they use. The effects just look fantastic. And honestly, I just love the kind of bright, bubbly, colourful tone that this film has. And it honestly just, it feels like it's been taken straight off the comic book pages. And in terms of performances, I think everyone's doing a pretty good job. I love Paul Rudd's character in this movie, and I think his performance complements that character really well. Michael Douglas, it was great to see him in the MCU. He's a fantastic actor, and he does a pretty good job here, if slightly underutilised. He does still do a pretty good job. And yeah, the full supporting cast is good, as well as the villain. The villain's pretty good in this one. Yeah, overall, what else can I really say about Ant-Man? Not much. It is a fun, harmless, turn your brain off kind of action superhero comedy, and yeah, I enjoy it. I would give Ant-Man a 7 out of 10. Okay, coming into the top 3 now with 3rd place, and that is, quite surprisingly, and I think if I was going to get hate for any of these placements in the comments, it'll be this one, because I think a lot of people don't like this movie, and I don't think it's quite given the credit that it deserves. Avengers Age of Ultron. Whilst Age of Ultron is by far the weakest Avengers movie, I think it is still a fantastic Marvel film. I do really enjoy the story in this one, and I think Ultron is honestly in my top 5 MCU villains of all time. And I love all the kind of relationships in this film. I love how the relationships between the Avengers are written, and honestly one of my favourite scenes in this film and in the entire MCU is just when the Avengers have a dinner party and you see them laughing and having fun and talking to each other. That is honestly some of the best writing in the entire MCU for me. The only 2 characters that I didn't think had the best written relationship was Bruce Banner, Hulk, and Natasha Romanoff, Black Widow. I think their romance feels a little bit too random, a bit too out there, and just that the writers wanted to create a bit of drama, so put it in this movie. And my 2 favourite Marvel characters are introduced in this movie, that being Wanda and Vision. And even though Wanda is evil in this movie, for the most part until the end where she becomes good, it is fantastic to see her introduction where she kind of started off in this world. And Vision is just fantastic from the off. He is such a fantastic character, beautifully written. Some of the lines that he drops are just some of the best lines in the entire MCU, and some of them are in this movie. In terms of the direction, I do think the direction is good, but it kind of feels like trying to capture lightning in a bottle twice. Infinity War and Endgame have a completely different feel to these first two movies. And I think if this one had more of a grittier kind of feel, it would have actually complemented the movie a little bit better, because the movie is quite dark. The villain's plot is quite dark. So a darker kind of feel of direction, a darker kind of tone would have suited this movie so much better. But it kind of tries to capture the first film's kind of comic book brought to life, kind of vibrant colours, just kind of flawless kind of cinematography, no real grittiness. It almost is too good direction, if that makes sense. And yeah, it just feels a lot less imaginative. It feels like Joss Whedon's just kind of moving through the motions of making an Avengers movie. And in terms of performances, I think everyone is fantastic here. I actually think a lot of them are actually better here than they are in the first movie. Ultron, even though he's just a voice actor, I can't remember the name of the guy who voices Ultron, but he does a fantastic job. So yeah, overall, I think Avengers Age of Ultron is actually slept on a little bit in the MCU, and I have a lot of fun with it. I'm going to give this movie an 8 out of 10. Okay, time for the runner-up. In second place we have, drumroll please, Guardians of the Galaxy. Yeah, I think a lot of people, especially if you know my kind of taste of the MCU, were probably expecting the Winter Soldier in this place, but it is in fact the first Guardians of the Galaxy. However, I think that pretty much everything about this movie is flawless. I love pretty much everything about it. However, I just love everything about Winter Soldier a little bit more. So let's talk about the beautiful direction first. The direction is just completely sublime in this movie. James Gunn is easily one of the best comic book directors of all time, in my opinion. In terms of capturing the feel of a comic book movie, I don't think anyone has done it better than James Gunn. The entire film just feels like the comic book coming to life. It is just absolutely amazing. The cinematography is excellent. The colours are so vibrant, so beautiful. The tone is kind of this silly, goofy, yet still packed with emotional moments. It's just absolutely fantastic. And in terms of story, whilst I do think it is probably the weakest story in the three Guardians movies, I still think the story is absolutely excellent here. I love all the characters that we're introduced to and the journey that we go on with these characters, how they kind of come across as a little bit rough, a little bit rude, just not nice people, and they kind of go on this character journey, finding friendship. Absolutely love all that stuff, and it's handled extremely well. And the script is packed full of hilarious moments, and I genuinely mean laugh out loud. The three Guardians movies are easily the funniest in the entire MCU. It is just packed with brilliant, hilarious dialogue, but also has a real serious emotional undertone. And when it delves into the sense of friendship, it never does it in a funny way. It does it in a very serious and emotional way that honestly there are parts in this movie that do bring me to tears. And in terms of performances in this movie, I think everyone gives fantastic performances in my opinion. Chris Pratt is excellent. Zoe Saldana is fantastic. Bradley Cooper was just the perfect choice to voice Rocket. I genuinely don't know how they chose him, but they made the best choice they could ever make. He does a fantastic job. Yeah, I think everyone just gives a fantastic performance. I do have one negative for the movie, and that negative is I think the first act is a little bit slow when you're getting introduced to all the characters. It seems to happen quite slowly and takes a bit of time to progress. And yeah, I just wish they had maybe picked up the pace with the start a little bit. But that is genuinely being really, really nitpicky. Overall, I would give Guardians of the Galaxy a 9 out of 10. But coming in at first place, we have Captain America, the Winter Soldier. This is easily one of the best action movies in the MCU, and honestly one of the best action movies of all time. The film really switches up the tone from the first Captain America film and does a similar thing to what The Dark Knight done, or the full of Christopher Nolan's Batman trilogy done. And that is, instead of making it a kind of like silly comic book superhero film. It almost becomes this kind of spy espionage action thriller, which really suits Captain America very, very well. I think this is probably some of the best action in the entire MCU, especially the elevator fight scene. That scene is just absolutely fantastic. And I think the story is absolutely excellent. There's loads of little twists and turns. The threat feels very real. It is just, even though it's a comic book movie and it is a bit silly, it is so grounded in reality, and that's what I truly love about it. In terms of direction, this is the first MCU film directed by the Russo brothers, and yeah, I love the way that they film action in this movie. It's kind of this kind of Bourne feel to it, with kind of shaky cam and these awesome fist fight scenes, and yeah, it is just absolutely fantastic filming of these action sequences. In terms of the direction as a whole, I think it looks pretty flawless. The Russo brothers are honestly some of the best MCU directors of all time. And in terms of performances, this is easily, for me, Chris Evans' best performance. Not just as Captain America, but in his career. And I honestly think that this is maybe my favourite performance by Scarlett Johansson in the MCU as well. Maybe joint with this and Infinity War Endgame. I think she's fantastic here, I truly do. All the acting is honestly superb and really suits the tone that this movie is going for. And I think the villain is also fantastic in this one too. Overall, I think that Captain America the Winter Soldier is one of the greatest MCU films of all time. I'm going to give it a 9 out of 10. So thank you everyone for watching this video. I'm really sorry that there hasn't been a lot of content on the channel recently. I have just started my first year at university studying film and media, and I'm absolutely loving it, but it is taking up a lot of my time. But the channel isn't going anywhere. I will still upload whenever I get the chance, just uploads might just become a little bit more spread out. But thank you guys for sticking with me. Please remember to like, comment, subscribe, share with your friends, all that jazz, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Goodbye.